Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to another edition of 15 Minutes of Flame. This is your intrepid host, Robert Phoenix, broadcasting to you live from a new location. Lovely little Fredericksburg, Texas. So I've talked a little bit about this new place I'm living, and I'm sure I'll be able to have a few more stories as the days progress and my life begins to unwind a bit here. It's very different than Austin. Very different. I was exchanging emails with Perry Eulander. Some of you might remember Perry as being a guest on the show, and Perry was the author, or is the author, of a fantastic book about his experiences during the Vietnam War called Walking Point, or Walking Point. And it's I can't say enough good things about Perry. He's truly the definition of a really really decent human and a great American. If we want to put the American behind great. Anyway, I was sending Perry an email last night, and I was trying to describe this place, and I think the phrase that I use at Fredericksburg is where Jesus lives, and dead deer litter the side of the road. It kind of gives you a brief visual here of what this place is like. It's a very religious community, very religious, which should be kind of interesting for somebody like myself. I consider myself religious. I think I'm religious, but I'm not religious in the way that perhaps religious people are religious. And this has always been a kind of an issue for me because I view myself as well, look, I think I fit a weird little niche kind of notch. And there are people who are on the new age side. Oh my God, this guy is like, he's too Christian, or he's got too much God stuff going on in his presentation or his rant. And then the Christians will say, oh, this is a new ager. We have to disavow him. So I'm in this weird zone where I'm kind of in a bit of a niche by myself, which I'm okay. I'm okay occupying that zone, to be honest with you. You got to be true to oneself, right? Anyway, it's a very religious place, and I'm not knocking it, nor am I condemning it for its religious attitudes. And it's small. I think the population is 20,000. The way that the town is set up is that the people who run the town, which are basically Germans who've been running the town since 1848, have zoning laws where you cannot build a franchise or a box lot store inside the city limits. So there's no Starbucks in town. Can you imagine that? There is no Starbucks in Fredericksburg. Unfortunately, a lot of the coffee places here are not that great, I have to say. So would I welcome a Starbucks to create a better cup of coffee? I'm not so sure. I think I'll support the locals and not have to deal with Starbucks and their shenanigans. But we do have fast food places, and we do have a Walmart here, and there are all in the outskirts of town. So when you come into town, you see the box lot stores. There's Walmart. The Ace is on the outskirts of town. What else do we have? There's a Whataburger here. Woohoo! Pizza Hut, Sonic, McDonald's, and there's a brand new Burger King on the other side of town. If you're headed south, outside of Fredericksburg, there's a Burger King there. That's a big deal right now. And we get about 3.5 million people through this little town every year because it is in what we call the Sonoma, the Napa Valley of Texas. There's a bunch of wineries out here, very few of which grow their own grapes. A lot of them import their grapes from California. They import California wine. How about that? And then there's wine from West Texas. A lot of the vineyards are quite young. Some of them do produce their own grapes, and they have their own batches of wine. But for the most part, it's either grapes coming from West Texas or California. But there are a lot of people that come through here to experience the luxury of sipping wine and relaxing at these nicely appointed wineries. And there are a lot of distilleries out here too. There's a major bourbon distillery called Garrison Brothers, which has won a bunch of awards. So that gives you kind of the lay of the land of lovely little Fredericksburg. It's a very quiet place. It's much more quiet than Austin. And speaking of Austin, people keep sending me emails wanting to know what's going on in Austin because they had another series of bombs that were tripwire bombs. Now think about this for a moment, okay? These are tripwire bombs, and tripwire bombs are fairly sophisticated. I suppose if you're going to have a bomb that goes off when you open a package, that's also fairly sophisticated as well. I mean, your average Joe, like if somebody said, "Hey, Robert, can you please cook us up a bomb and put it inside of a package?" I think I'd have a very difficult time doing that. I mean, certainly from a philosophical, moral, spiritual standpoint, the answer would be an obvious no. I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to do that. But let's say somebody put a gun to my head and said, "Robert, make a bomb and out of this package." I'd have a very difficult time. First of all, I'd have to go online. That would be a red flag, since all of our movements are tracked and traced online. I'd have to Google, although I probably use DuckDuckGo, which is people think DuckDuckGo is like this really secure and private and anonymous search tool. I beg to differ. I think it's all perfectly up for the NSA's smorgasbord of grabbing information no matter what search engine you use. You'll get better results, I think, with DuckDuckGo versus the algorithms that Google fires up these days. But anyway, I'd have to go on DuckDuckGo. How to make a package bomb. Quite frankly, I don't know how to do it. I don't. So, and I'm not. I'm not a. I tend to think I'm on the more intelligent than less intelligent side, although my intelligence probably wouldn't translate into being a Ted Kaczynski kind of character, at least not from a tactical standpoint. So I think you'd have to have some kind of military experience, don't you think, to make a bomb? Or if not military experience, maybe you'd have to belong to some kind of group or organization, maybe some kind of agency that might actually know how to do these sorts of things? Question mark. That would be my sense. That would be my sense, because creating a package bomb and a tripwire bomb is not your average, ordinary, garden variety skill that most people possess. Doesn't happen. So, what does that mean? How does this translate into what's taking place in Austin? And why Austin, for that matter? It's an interesting question. Well, I have some thoughts about it. First of all, it feels to me like Austin is this very interesting epicenter of this clash of ideologies. For instance, about a month ago, the Austin weekly newspaper that comes out was talking about the blue tide rising. Blue tide rising, the rising blue tide. And it was all about championing the bluification of Austin and Texas in general. And what I mean by that is it was celebrating the rising progressive values of Austin and Texas. And in a large part, connecting it to Californians who have moved to Texas and are looking to continue to promulgate their progressive and democratic point of view. Well, the last election, there were some close races, but Texas stayed red. It's a red state still. And there was a great deal of of hype, whole lot of hype and a whole lot of buzz that was going to change. And so the reason I'm sharing this with you is because there's a, I would say, vocal semi-minority that was really pushing this changing the guard, and a lot of it is taking place in Austin because it's like you have Houston, which is an interesting entity. Houston, by and large, I believe, tends to be on the progressive side. If you look at the last two mayors that Houston has had, the current mayor, African American and gay, and the last mayor was, I think she was lesbian. So Houston tends to elect progressive identities to run the city. And yet, it is a highly conservative town when it comes to money, of course, because due to the oil industry. I mean, you can't bump into anybody in Houston and not have them be in the oil industry. It's omnipresent. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere, and that tends to be a very conservative field. But then you look at the ethnographic makeup of Houston, and Houston tends to be incredibly diverse. It's one of the most diverse cities in the country, if not the world. It is the number three largest city in this country alone. So Houston, even though it is conservatively financially conservative, on the demographic side, it tends to be, I believe, much more progressive and trends into the blue zone. And then you have to the north of Austin, Dallas, which is about as red as it can get. Isn't it interesting that when we talk about red states, we talk about conservatism and we talk about uh, kind of fiscal conservatism and social conservatism. We use the term red state, and when we think of red states, we think of communism. Isn't that interesting? I mean, at least that's what it's connected to. It's one of those mind fucks with language that takes place. Yeah, we're talking about conservative values, but it also represents the epitome of the red state, which is communism. It's an Orwellian little thing. Anyway, so then you have Austin, which is in the middle, and it's the clash of the red and the blue. So I think part of the reason why this is taking place is the ideological makeup of Austin. It is a beachhead in a lot of ways, just like in many ways Florida was a beachhead. If you look back in the election in 2016, Florida was one of the states that carried Trump. Surprisingly, carried Trump. And look what happened. Look what happened to Florida. Well, they've had a hurricane. They've had a big hurricane, and now they had this event in Parkland, and they're still probably not done. Is Trump theoretically being punished for winning? I'm not so sure because I think Trump is in on a lot of this stuff. To be quite honest with you, I mean he knows what's going on. He's got friends in high places. Let's put it that way. I don't think he just runs around and does secret Masonic handshakes with Benjamin Netanyahu without being able to have a sense as to what the larger plan is. That's my 2 cents with Trump. Anyway, but that's what happened with Florida. Florida became its own beachhead, and now they're taking guns away. I'm going to talk about a story. They just passed legislation very quickly on the heels of Parkland, and there's a very interesting story that I want to share with you. Not quite right now, but it's going to happen later in the broadcast today. So, Austin is an ideological beachhead, and there is this swirling tide of the red and the blue that's taking place in Austin. Also, it is one of the cities that is at the top of the Agenda 2030, Agenda 21 pyramid. It is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the city that's been chosen to roll out the Agenda 2030 banner in a pretty significant way. So it has that little badge of honor associated with it. Of course, Alex Jones is here or there because I'm not there anymore. So I think that that may have just a little smidgen. I mean, we're putting this all together to try to come up with why these things are happening. Um, and also, if you have been paying attention, most of these packages and or these bombs have taken place during South by Southwest. And South by Southwest is a yearly event where people from all over the planet converge on Austin. And there's a huge amount of media coverage that takes place during South by Southwest, both in this country, but also with the myriad of people that are visiting South by Southwest. For instance, the mayor of London was at the latest South by was here about a week and a half ago, or in Austin a week and a half ago, and he was talking about how tech companies have a responsibility to curtail hate speech. And what he was really saying was tech companies need to be able to throw the Constitution out the window and basically take people off the internet or curtail what they're talking about or shadow ban them or do whatever it takes. Do whatever it takes so that quote unquote hate speech is removed, barred, and essentially disappeared from the internet. So there's this war that's going on now between, censorship and freedom of speech, and that's the way it is. That's happening, and that cannot be denied. There is no conspiracy theory around the war on speech. It's taking place right now, and the freedom of expression, and it has been for really intensely for the last 2 years. So we have South by Southwest taking place, and so there's all eyes to a large extent, all. But there are people that are going out. What happened here? Uh-oh. Sorry about that. There are people that were leaving Austin, I believe on Monday when this latest series of events took place. And I've been getting emails from my kid's superintendent talking about all the things they're doing to ensure the kids' safety. In fact, there were two neighborhoods, one of which was adjacent to where my son lives, that was on lockdown by the cops because of some of it. So these are really troubling incidents, not only due to the fact that people can be harmed and maimed by these bombs, but also the general vibe that it casts out into the public. And I had a very good friend of mine ask me why all this is happening. Why is this happening? And my answer to her was, it is the Gazification of the United States. That's why this is taking place. It is the Gazification of the United States. Now, here's where the conspiratorial mindset comes into play. I believe, and this is my belief, quote unquote, that these events are not random, that they are not the byproduct of a sick mind that wants to inflict injury upon other people randomly. They're not the byproduct of a sick mind that wants to frighten and terrorize the youth of not just Austin, but the rest of the United States. I believe that it is part of a program to destabilize and create chaos in the country. And what is the end result of that? Well, why, you ask yourself, well, Robert, why is this happening? Well, it's happening because there is a huge amount of money in security. Huge amount of money. Massive amounts of money. We're already seeing major scanners in place in body scanners in train stations across the country. And soon they'll be at schools. They'll be all over schools. They're already in hotels now in Las Vegas, and more are coming. They're coming, and I believe they'll probably wind up being mandatory. But it's more than that. It's more than that. If you, and I've never been, but I've done a lot of reading about what it's like to go to Gaza. There are checkpoints everywhere. If you want to have a dentist appointment and the dentist is 25 minutes away, you should plan about a 2-hour journey to get to the dentist because people have to go through checkpoints constantly. They have to have their IDs scanned, and there's a whole series of biometric rituals that people have to go through in order to get to where they want to go. Which is why there's a series of tunnels underneath Gaza where people can literally circumnavigate the city, uh, by not having to go through the checkpoints. So, in my estimation, what we're seeing is the beginning of the Gazification of the United States. And these events are part and parcel leading us in that direction. That's my take on it. My friend asked me, I said, well, this is where it's going. Because the outcome is more security. Right? This is what we need more security. We need to feel safe. We don't want to feel like there's some random package or some random person that's going to do harm to our children or anybody else in our family. So please do whatever it takes. Do whatever it takes to make us feel safe and secure. Well, I'll tell you one thing that they're going to need to do to make us feel safe and secure is to take the self-driving cars off the road. A self-driving car claimed the life of a woman in Tempe, Arizona. And this was updated. This is from the 19th, which was just yesterday. Over the weekend, a woman was hit by a self-driving car. The Uber8.com car, and it is the byproduct of the Advanced Technology Center, where Uber is using self-driving cars throughout Arizona, or were, to see what they're capable of. And this particular self-driving car actually had a human behind the wheel to take over the car just in case the car did something it shouldn't have been doing. Well, apparently the human was not able to commandeer the car quickly enough, and this self-driving car killed a pedestrian. I'll read you the story. This is from Sputnik News. A woman in Tempe, Arizona died early Monday morning after being hit by a self-driving car operated by Uber, making it the first known death of pedestrian hit by an autonomous vehicle in the U.S. AI has claimed its first victim, its first official victim. AI has claimed it. According to police officials, the car was in autonomous mode, but there was also a human safety driver behind the wheel at the time of the incident. The woman was struck by the car in Tempe, a city just east of Phoenix, while she was crossing the street south of Curry Road on Mill Avenue. The unidentified woman was reportedly rushed to a hospital where she died from injuries, Phoenix KNXG reported. An Uber spokesperson told the station that they are fully cooperating with local authorities. Uber has suspended all autonomous car operations in Phoenix, Pittsburgh, San Francisco, and Toronto. You can see I've got a visual here. There's a bike. This was a woman, I believe it was on a bike, and this self-drive. Can you imagine being the guy who's behind the wheel? Wouldn't have seen that. Can you imagine that? You're sitting there, you're the guy who's the test pilot, you're the Chuck Yeager of the self-driving car. And all of a sudden the self-driving car does not recognize pedestrian and pow. And you're trying at the last minute to do something to commandeer the car, which is running on its own volition. And you failed. You failed. Could you imagine being inside that guy's head? And what's going on with that dude? Assuming it's a dude. Could be a dudette. I don't want to be sexist here. That person. Could you imagine what's going on inside their head? vehicle program in Tempe, San Francisco, and Pittsburgh after a Honda CR-V collided into a self-driving Volvo run by Uber. Okay, so it took him a year to theoretically work out the bugs. A year later, March 2018, there's a fatality. That accident did not lead to a fatality. Here's a little verbiage here from Governor Ducey. Earlier this month, Arizona Governor Doug Ducey issued an executive order stating that driverless vehicles don't need a driver behind the wheel if they abide by traditional traffic laws. Can we read this again? This is utter insanity. Doug Ducey issued an executive order stating that driverless vehicles don't need a driver behind the wheel if they abide by traditional traffic laws. That's ridiculous. I mean, of course, it's going to be programmed into the car that you're going to stop at a stoplight. You're going to signal 500 feet before you make a turn and merge into the lane that you're. Of course, they're going to program all that stuff in there and theoretically abide by traditional traffic laws. But these things are imperfect. Are you kidding me? They're completely imperfect. They're in a beta stage. They're not even like completely or as perfected as much as they could be. I mean, think about this just for a second. Everybody has a computer. You're probably listening to me on your computer. How often does your computer screw up? Mine screws up about a half a dozen times a day for whatever reason. Okay, it's kind of baked into being a computer. There's no such thing as a perfect computer with a perfect operating system. Sorry, it doesn't exist. And now we're supposed to expect cars, self-driving cars, which are basically being driven by computers, to be able to perform all the functions of a human driver and to do it in a way that follows traditional traffic laws. Sounds like somebody's on the payroll there of the automated driving companies, Uber, Waymo, General Motors. Here's another little tidbit. Good morning. The following is information reference. The traffic collision. The incident occurred on 3/18/2018 at approximately 10 p.m. Night. We wanted to provide an update to the Uber accident that occurred overnight on Mill Avenue, just south of Curry Road. The vehicle involved was one of Uber's self-driving vehicles. It was in autonomous mode at the time of the collision with a vehicle operator behind the wheel. The vehicle was traveling northbound just south of Curry Road when a female walking outside of the crosswalk crossed the road from west to east when she was struck by the Uber vehicle. Okay, so they had to make a slight mention there that they were walking outside of the crosswalk. Because if she's inside the crosswalk, then it's okay. Hey, our fault totally. You were inside the crosswalk. We would have recognized that. But since you were outside the crosswalk, well, the car didn't recognize you, so that's on you. I mean, that's what it sounds like, right? She was transported to a local area hospital where she passed away from her injuries. Her next of kin have not been notified yet, so her name is not being released at this time. Uber is assisting, and this is still an active investigation. Here's what Ducey said. As technology advances, our policies and priorities must adapt to remain competitive in today's economy. Ducey said in a statement this month, this executive order embraces new technologies by creating an environment that supports autonomous vehicle innovation and maintains a focus on public safety. Ducey's order states that robot cars, with or without a person present in the vehicle, must follow all state federal laws, as well as Department of Transportation regulations. Big fucking deal. course they're going to do that. It has to. And that's supposed to make it okay. Just by following, theoretically, the laws, it's supposed to just make it okay. Well, we're going to give them the right to do anything. They don't have to follow the laws. We're going to support this development, this innovation. Of course they have to. Well, Mr. Ducey, in the name of progress, there's some blood on your hands here. I mean, it's a money game, right? Come on. It's a total money game. If Arizona doesn't play ball with Uber or Waymo or General Motors or Intel or whomever, they're going to go to another state. And they're going to pay New Mexico that money. Because at the end of the day, if there were no fatalities, and even if there's a fatality or two in the name of progress, because people obviously have to die in the name of progress, happens all the time, doesn't it? This poor woman was sacrificed in the name of progress. Because I'll tell you right now, they're not going to shut down the autonomous vehicle program. It'll continue. We'll bring it up again next March until they theoretically get it right. But it's all about the money. You know, if this had not occurred, if they had had a spotless rollout of autonomous driving, Ducey could sit back and he could adjust the lapels on his suit and say, look at us. Aren't we innovative? And look at all the money we brought in. And look at all the driverless industry we brought to Arizona. Now, what you did is you basically enabled the frickin' Antichrist. That's what you did. Convenience is the Antichrist. And now there's blood and a fatality on Uber's hands. And do you think they really cared? Oh, they'll wring their hands. They'll probably have some kind of a settlement, but they'll continue to roll this technology out because that's where things are headed. That's where things are headed. Whether you like them or not, they're going to continue to roll this stuff out. I was watching a TV commercial, and by the way, more and more products that are related to VR are being pushed on TV. Now, at some point, VR is going to become very ubiquitous. But I was watching a commercial for Cadillac. Cadillac, the epitome of luxury in American sedans. And there is this guy driving the Cadillac. It's the open road, and he hits like this automated driver function inside the Cadillac. And all of a sudden, there's this magic moment where he lets go of the wheel. He lets go of the wheel. He's out there in the open highway, and the car is driving itself. And it becomes a symbol of freedom. He doesn't have to do anything. He just has to sit back and watch the beautiful scenery go by as Detroit's finest piece of modern machinery does all the driving for him. That's where it's all headed. It's all about convenience. All about convenience. According to the executive order, driverless vehicles are only allowed on the road if the operator submits a statement to the Department of Transportation proving the vehicle complies with federal law that is programmed to go into minimal risk condition if it has a malfunction. Where's the oversight for this stuff? I mean, come on. There's no oversight. There's none. There's no oversight. All Uber has to do is say, yep, well, these cars are going to follow the laws, and we have a little program that's set up that kicks into minimal risk when there is something going on. It's our version of a fail-safe or an overwrite. Is there anybody on the state side that's actually looking at the programming? Is there anybody on the state side that's actually going through the software? Do the cars have to meet some kind of 24-point check that the state has set up? No, because the executive order says driverless vehicles are only allowed on the road if the operator submits a statement to the Department of Transportation proving that the vehicle complies with federal law and that it's programmed to go into minimal risk condition if it has a malfunction. That's it. That's it. It's just a statement. There's nobody on the other side of that transaction that's looking at that car and says, you know what? There's a flaw in the program when somebody steps outside the crosswalk. The car doesn't recognize the radiant heat signature because it is outside the sidewalk and it is too close to the car. I mean, who knows? I don't know. I'm not an engineer. Slippery slope. So just wait. They're already running out the tractor trailer rigs. And those are set to go from Mexico to Canada, basically through, I think, what is it, Eastern California or Arizona, straight up to Canada. And they're going to be running transport from Mexico to Canada on these driverless vehicles. The only way the driverless vehicles are really, really going to work, to be honest with you, is if they're all driverless. They're all driverless, and there's no other cars that are being piloted by humans, or in a case like this freeway that'll go from Mexico to Canada, that there's no pedestrians. And that way you minimize risk. There's no human life involved. There's only cargo. And we're assuming that the cargo isn't human cargo. Anyway, that's where we're headed. And of course, they're going to start up with their testing all over again. Let's see what else we have here. Another little piece that caught my attention having to do with technology. Edward Snowden, remember him? Julian Assange Light, another potential cutout. He recently came out with a statement that Facebook is a surveillance company rebranded as social media. Thank you, Captain Obvious. I'll just read it to you anyway, because it's kind of part of the theme today, today's show. NSA whistleblower and former CIA employee, Edward Snowden, slammed Facebook in a Saturday tweet following the suspension of Strategic Communication Laboratories at its political data analytics firm, Cambridge Analytica, which, of course, was connected to Bannon and Trump and grabbing psychographic material. I'll tell you a psychographic story after this. Over what Facebook says was improper use of collected data. Facebook does this all the time. Facebook will sell your information to any third party. It's part of the deal. It's part of the deal. The problem that Cambridge Analytica got involved with is the fact that they then in turn sold your information to another source. Okay, so they were downstreaming the sale of information. In a nutshell, in 2015, Cambridge Analytica bought data from a University of Cambridge psychology professor, Dr. Alexander Kogan, who developed an app called This Is Your Digital Life that vacuumed up loads of information on users and their contacts. After making Kogan and Cambridge Analytica promised to delete the data the app had gathered, Facebook received reports from sources they would not identify, which claimed that not all data had been deleted, which led the social media giant to delete Cambridge Analytica and parent company SCL's accounts. By passing information on to a third party, including SCL Cambridge Analytica and Christopher Wiley of Eunoia Technologies, he violated our platform policies. When we learned of this violation in 2015, we removed his app from Facebook and demanded certifications from Kogan, and all parties he had given data to that information had been destroyed. Cambridge Analytica, Kogan, and Wiley all certified to us that they destroyed the data. In the meantime, they made a lot of money. Of note, Cambridge Analytica worked for Ted Cruz and Ben Carson during the 2016 election before contracting with the Trump campaign. Cruz stopped using CA after their data modeling failed to identify likely supporters. Cambridge Analytica has vehemently denied any wrongdoing in its statements. In response to the ban, Edward Snowden fired off 2 tweets on Saturday criticizing Facebook and claims social media companies were simply surveillance companies who engaged in a successful deception by rebranding themselves. Really? Really, Edward? Like we haven't known this? Facebook was started by DARPA. It was created by DARPA. It has been a DARPA tool from day one, okay? Facebook makes their money by exploiting and selling intimate details about the private lives of millions, far beyond the scant details you voluntarily post. They're not victims, they are accomplices. That's a Snowden tweet. Another Snowden tweet. Businesses that make money by collecting and selling detailed records of private lives were once plainly described as surveillance companies. Their rebranding as social media is the most successful deception since the Department of War became the Department of Defense. Snowden isn't the first big name to call out Silicon Valley companies over their data collection and monitoring practices or their notorious intersection with the U.S. government. Assange did it as well when Google met WikiLeaks. Julian Assange describes Google's close relationship with the NSA and the Pentagon. Around the same time, Google was becoming involved in a program known as the Enduring Safety Framework, aka ESF, which entailed the sharing of information between Silicon Valley tech companies and Pentagon-affiliated agencies at network speed. Emails obtained in 2014 under the Freedom of Information request show Schmidt, that's Eric Schmidt, and his fellow Googler, Sergey Brin, corresponding on first-name terms with NSA Chief General Keith Alexander about ESF reportage on the emails focused on the familiarity in the correspondence. General Keith, so great to see you. So great to see you. Schmidt wrote, but most reports overlook a crucial detail, your insights as a key member of the defense industrial base. Alexander wrote to Brin, are valuable to ensure ESF's efforts have measurable impact. Kim.com, of course, now the new conscience of social media, has to chime in because YouTube belongs to Google, and Google is the biggest supplier of user data to the U.S. government. Everything you do on any Google service, any search, any email ends up in the NSA spy cloud, and Google provides custom search technology to the government to spy on you better. This is all true stuff. This is part of the net. That's why they call it the net. And we are using it, and it should be a conscious choice. We know what's going on. We know that they're grabbing our data. We know that they're selling it. We know that they're compiling what's called a straw man, which a lot of people aren't familiar with, but there is a you and there is a digital you. And there's a digital you that exists somewhere on a mainframe server. And that digital you has all of your likes, all of your dislikes, your tendencies, your patterns, anything that's associated with you, because if they need to or want to, they can access your digital self so that they can figure out what you would do under circumstance A, B, C, or D. And there's a digital self for everybody. It's another version of the straw man. And this has been going on for a while. And they have the computing power in order to do it. They want to be able to predict how everybody is going to react or respond under any given circumstance. And this is what these people get off on. They get off on game theory. They get off on advanced modeling programs. Let's say there was I'll be benign here. Let's say there was an ecological crisis. There was a massive earthquake in California. Okay. How would X, Y, and Z, how would they react to a massive earthquake? And they can model it out individually. They can model it out in small groups, larger groups. They do this stuff all the time. They love it. They love it. It allows them to feel like God. To feel like God and be able to predict and determine how certain individuals, groups, and subsets of groups will react under any given circumstance or condition, whether it's an ecological crisis, an economical crisis, a social crisis, whatever it is. They play with this stuff all the time. All the time. And that's where they're able to take the advanced data metrics. That's where they want to take it. They want predictability. They want to predict what you're going to buy. It happens all the time. And that's the most benign version of it. How many times have you been in a store? In a store, and you're looking around for something, and all of a sudden on your cell phone, there's an ad for the thing that you're looking for. It's happened to me on numerous occasions. It's because Facebook has voice technology that's connected to your phone. You're listening. And if you don't think that this is going on 24/7, then you are wet behind the ears, as they say. Well, let's look at another version of what they're doing with intelligence gathering. And this is fresh off the press here. And I said that I would read the story. And here it is. This is from the Orlando Sentinel. Police seize first firearms under Florida's new gun control laws. Oh. Okay. The guns and ammunition have been temporarily removed from the man under the state's new risk protection law, which is also sometimes called red flag legislation. Lighthouse Point attorney Michael Cerullo confirmed. The man was also taken to a hospital for involuntary psychiatric treatment under the state's Baker Act. But the civil ruling removing his access to guns and ammunition was granted under the new legislation, which permits confiscating guns from people who have not been committed but are deemed a potential risk to themselves or others, according to the order signed by Broward's Chief Judge Jack Tudor. The man is also prohibited from trying to purchase or obtain guns or ammunition from any source. The legislation is part of a bill signed 1 week ago by Governor Rick Scott. The new laws impose some restrictions on gun sales and give law enforcement new power to take action when they have evidence that a person may pose a danger. What did I talk about? What did I say? Within hours after this thing in Parkland happened, I said that they're going to pull people out of their homes, off the streets, if they are deemed a potential threat. There it is. The Baker Act was our. Why didn't they use the Baker Act on Nicholas Cruz? You know, it's really interesting. There's this guy that used to play professional football, Jonathan Martin. He played for the Miami Dolphins. And I did a big piece on Jonathan Martin and Richie Incognito on my website. This was in the aftermath of the Trayvon Martin event. And I was linking the two together. Trayvon Martin and Jonathan Martin. Martin being, of course, Martian, being violence, war, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The will. Anyway, Jonathan Martin, I don't even want to get into the rabbit hole. Jonathan Martin goes too deep. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Maybe I'll do a thing on Jonathan Martin tomorrow. But I'll just give you the headline here. Jonathan Martin was he played for the Miami Dolphins, and he accused two players on the Miami Dolphins team, both of whom were offensive linemen, Richie Incognito, and I believe Mike Pouncey, who plays center for the Dolphins. They were told by the Dolphins coaches to toughen Jonathan Martin up a bit. He was a second-round draft choice, which is quite high. Spent a lot of money on these players. Graduate of Stanford. His father is a professor of law at the University of California, Los Angeles. I believe Dominguez, if I'm not mistaken. His father has done his father's like a social justice warrior. Done a lot of work with Department of Homeland Security, written lots of training manuals for DHS. The father has. And these are not cheap books. These are books at upwards of $300 and wind up in the hands of law enforcement officials and agencies. High-end training manuals. That's Jonathan Martin's father. Anyway, Jonathan Martin is considered soft. So the Dolphins coach said, hey, Richie, hey, Mike, can you toughen Jonathan up a little bit? Make him a little more aggressive. We need a little more aggression out of the guy. So they did. This is what dudes do. This is what dudes on steroids who play pro football do. They teased him, they played around with him, they messed around with him. Apparently, Incognito and Martin were they're pretty tight. They did a whole thing in their charts. So many interconnected pieces in their charts. And then one day, Jonathan Martin leaves the team and accuses Incognito. He nearly ruined Richie Incognito's career. Richie Incognito has his own issues, don't get me wrong. Nearly ruined his career. He eventually came back and became an all-pro, playing for the Buffalo Bills. Richie Incognito is actually kind of an interesting guy. Meanwhile, Jonathan Martin winds up being traded to the San Francisco 49ers, where he played for one season and played miserably. At that, he was not a very good player. This is a guy he should never been playing pro football. You got a nice little scholarship from Stanford. Should have taken that scholarship and gone to law school and followed in his father's footsteps. Pro football is a vicious, violent, aggressive sport. And if you are not vicious and violent and aggressive, you will get absolutely steamrolled and pancaked right out of that league. That's the way it is. So Jonathan Martin could not let this thing go. And I believe it was last week where he started to post on Twitter. He posted a gun and he posted a bunch of other stuff. And he was naming people like Mike Pouncey and Richie Incognito and even his old high school. This is a guy that could not let go of a grudge. And they pulled Jonathan Martin off the streets. They put him under observation. Because it looked like Jonathan Martin was going to lose it. And that was just one series of tweets. And they detained him. And he had a loaded weapon in his car. They took it. But of course, they couldn't do that with Nicholas Cruz, who had lots of Twitter and Instagram evidence about what he would like to do, what he would want to do. Not only that, he had about over 50 dust-ups with the cops and the school. And yet this kid is allowed to literally be a free radical. Tabbed and switched on when they needed him. And now we have this. We have this legislation in Florida. We put the safety of our residents first, said Lighthouse Point Mayor Glenn Trost. This is not about the Second Amendment. And it's not about the NRA. We need common sense gun laws. And this is a common sense gun law that gives police officers new tools they need to help protect our community. Yeah, what it does, it gives the police officers new tools to enforce a police state and just grab people. We don't know what this guy was doing. He was a 56-year-old, likely white male with some weapons and some ammo. And who knows? Maybe he was, I don't know, a Trump supporter. I don't know. But apparently they thought that he was a threat and they picked him off the streets and took his guns away. This is the new America. This is the new America. And you think that this is just going to be one tiny little patch of what I would call extensive oversight and overreach? No, not at all. The small city lies 14 miles east of Parkland, where 34 people were shot, 17 of whom died in the February 14th mass shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. Before now, officials who attempted to remove guns from a person they thought was a danger could be removed from office and fined up to $5,000, the mayor said. Trost said he grew up in a law enforcement family, hunted with guns, and has a healthy respect for firearms and gun rights. Of course, nobody will take his guns away. Lighthouse Point Police made the request on March 14th, 1 week after they were called to conduct a welfare check on the man who they said was behaving strangely at his condominium building. Authorities said it was the latest in a series of encounters law enforcement had with the man. Though he has no prior history of arrests in Florida, he had some prior arrests in Pennsylvania. Records show. What's this thing with Pennsylvania and Florida? It's an interesting connection there. Police were called after the man turned off the main electrical breakers in the condo. South Florida Sun Sentinel is not identifying the man because of his medical condition. The man told officers he was being targeted and burglarized by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, a neighbor who lives in his building. The judge wrote in his order he could not describe the neighbor, but stated that the neighbor can shapeshift. He can change heights, and I'm not sure where he comes from. And to be honest, he looks like Osama bin Laden. He also told officers he had to turn off the electrical breakers because they are electrocuting through my legs. Officers said called to check on Arms 357 mag stub nose revolver and a Mossberg 512 gauge shotgun, according to the court order. Authorities have also begun the process of notifying federal and state authorities as required by the law so that the issue be flagged if the man attempts to purchase a gun. He's done. His rights have been taken away from him. Pre-crime? I think we are. Sounds like the guy had some issues. And I also know for a fact that there are people that are targeted. They are targeted. We got some action in the chat room. What do we have here? Let's check it out. Let's see. Good morning. Came in at the perfect time. Coming through up here. Let's see. What do we got? Where did you go? Susie in Fredericksburg. Oh, it's on my computer is very funny. Thank you. Yes, the science space. Got love. The science was on my part. Science. So when are they? Okay. When are they going to use the technology to deem that a self-driving car is dangerous? You know, do they have that in place? Well, this car was acting in an erratic fashion. It was taking turns without using its signal. There was at least one occasion when the car went beyond the speed limit, which was set at 65, and the car was doing 70. There was another example of the car when it was in reverse, it actually tapped another car. I think we're going to have to temporarily suspend this car and pull it off the streets. This car needs some therapy. It needs some therapy. Maybe they should have temporarily suspended that car in Tempe, Arizona, before it killed that woman on the streets of Tempe. Anyway, a brief smidgen of stuff that's going on in the world today. And yet, as I look out my window, there's not a chemtrail in the sky. It is springtime, and in this moment, there is much to be grateful for. So, what are you grateful for in your life? What can you look at and say, I'm thrilled, I'm happy, I am extremely pleased and grateful that I have X, Y, or Z in my life? Because I think that those are the really important things that we can also focus on. And not just the fact that there are some strange happenings that are taking place in the world that I have to tell you about. Because if I don't tell you, somebody else probably will, but they may not get to it as fast as I do with as much other information kind of kludged together, which is what we do our best to do here on this show. 4 days a week, and then 5 days on Friday when we do the Friday Forecast.
So just to let you know some things that are happening this Saturday over on astrolotta.com. I'll be talking about Chiron and Aries. You don't want to miss that. It's going to be, I think, a pretty action-packed, jam-packed presentation. I have a lot of information on Chiron. It's one of the areas of astrology I specialize in. So that's this Saturday over on Astrolotta. And on Friday, I'll be talking with my good friend Regina Meredith, and we'll be looking ahead to the astrology of springtime astrology on her website, reginameredith.com. That's happening on Friday. Of course, it'll be edited and probably up on her website at the beginning of the week. So we've got some other media stuff happening out there that you want to plug in and check out. It'll be available for you. All right. Well, why don't we wind this baby down? You know the drill. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to step on what's possible. And this is